The concrete was hot enough to blister skin. Nathan Cross didn't care. His hands were already bleeding as he clawed at the rubble, each breath burning his lungs in the 105-degree August heat. He'd heard the sound 3 minutes ago. A desperate, broken cry that stopped him cold in the abandoned Riverside Industrial Complex. Not the coyote he'd come to find. Something worse. When he rounded the collapsed wall, his heart seized. A German shepherd's head protruded from tons of concrete, only her eyes visible through the dust and blood. Those eyes, deep brown, intelligent, drowning in tears, weren't looking at him. They were looking down. Then he heard it. A second sound, weaker, muffled. Puppies. The mother wasn't crying for herself. She was begging him to save her babies buried beneath her. 3 weeks. The earthquake had been 3 weeks ago. Not this time, Nathan whispered, hands already moving. Not again. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Nathan Cross had been a firefighter for 15 years before the building collapse took that life away from him. Now, at 40, he lived in a cramped rental house in Riverside County, California, surviving on a disability pension of $2,400 a month. Most of it went to rent. The rest barely covered food and the medications that didn't quite silence the nightmares. He was tall, 6'2", with graying brown hair that made him look older than his years. A thick scar ran down his left forearm, a souvenir from the day Marcus died. The day the ceiling came down and Nathan made it out while his partner didn't. The day he heard Marcus screaming his name from beneath the flames and couldn't go back. That was 3 years ago. His wife left him 2 years after that, unable to live with a man who woke up every night choking on phantom smoke, calling for a dead man. Nathan didn't blame her. He could barely live with himself. He found purpose in the only place that made sense anymore. Second Chance's Animal Rescue, a small operation on the outskirts of San Bernardino. He volunteered there 6 days a week, searching for injured strays in places most people were too afraid to go. Condemned buildings, homeless encampments, disaster sites, places that reminded him of the day he failed Marcus, giving him chance after chance to succeed where it mattered less, where it hurt less. That's why he was here today, alone in this maze of collapsed concrete and twisted rebar. Someone had reported an injured coyote near the old industrial complex, abandoned after the earthquake 3 weeks ago. Magnitude 4.5. Not enough to make national news, but enough to bring down structures that were already barely standing. The heat was murderous. 105 degrees, the kind of dry California heat that made your eyes sting and your throat close. No shade, no water nearby. Just acres of sun-baked destruction that the city had roped off and forgotten. Nathan had ignored the warning signs and squeezed through a gap in the chain-link fence. Now he stood before something that made his blood run cold. The German shepherd was a purebred. He could tell that much. Black and tan coat, though it was so matted with dust and blood he could barely make out the colors. Her right ear was torn, a chunk missing that had healed badly. Her neck bore deep scars where a collar had embedded itself into flesh, probably for months. She was skeletal, ribs jutting through her sides like prison bars. But it was her eyes that destroyed him. Deep brown, intelligent, filled with something beyond pain, beyond fear, desperate hope. The kind of hope that had been shattered so many times it barely dared to exist. Yet there it was, flickering in those eyes like a candle in a storm, as she looked not at him, but downward, toward something he couldn't yet see. And then he heard them, the puppies, crying from somewhere beneath tons of concrete. Nathan dropped to his knees beside her, ignoring the way the scorching concrete burned through his jeans. The German Shepherd didn't flinch at his approach, didn't snarl or snap or show any of the fear he'd expect from a dog trapped and suffering. She just looked at him with those impossibly sad eyes, then looked down again, telling him, showing him. "Easy, girl," Nathan whispered, his voice cracking. "I'm here. I see you." He ran his hands along the visible parts of her body, doing a rapid assessment the way he'd been trained. Her breathing was shallow but steady, no fresh blood, which meant she'd been here a while. The wounds were old, scabbed over. The embedded collar scar around her neck made his stomach turn. Someone had left a collar on her so long it had grown into her skin. Someone had done this to her on purpose. His hands were shaking now, but not from the heat, from rage, from recognition. He knew abuse when he saw it. This dog had been someone's punching bag, and somehow, impossibly, she'd escaped, only to end up here, buried alive. The mother made a sound then. Not a bark, not a whimper. Something else. A low, rhythmic vocalization that Nathan recognized from his years around animals. A maternal call. The sound a mother makes when she's trying to reach her babies. He pressed his ear close to the rubble, blocking out the desert wind and the distant traffic. There. Beneath the concrete, muffled and weak, he heard them. Multiple voices, at least 4, maybe 5. Tiny, desperate cries. "Oh, God," Nathan breathed. "How many are down there?" The mother's gaze remained fixed on a specific spot about 2 feet to her left, where the concrete had buckled and formed a chaotic pile. Nathan studied the collapse pattern, his old training kicking in. The way the beam had fallen, the angle of the debris. She'd been standing here when it came down, and she'd positioned herself to shield them. 3 weeks ago. The earthquake had been 3 weeks ago. This dog had kept her puppies alive for 3 weeks, buried under concrete in 100-degree heat. Nathan's phone had 1 bar of signal. He dialed second chances with trembling fingers. "Dr. Mitchell," a woman's voice answered. "Sarah, it's Nathan. I need you to mobilize. Multiple victims, canine, critical condition." He was using his old emergency response voice, clipped and efficient, the only way he could get the words out without breaking. "How many?" "1 adult female, at least 4 to 5 puppies, maybe more." A pause. "Nathan, where are you?" "Riverside Industrial Site. The condemned one off Highway 60. I'm sending coordinates." "That's 45 minutes away." "I know." He looked at the mother dog, at the way her breathing was becoming more labored, at the weakening cries from below. "They don't have 45 minutes. Nathan, bring fluids, warming blankets, oxygen if you have it. I'm starting extraction now." He hung up before Sarah could argue, pulled off his work gloves and dropped them. His hands would bleed worse without them, but he needed to feel the concrete, to sense which pieces were load-bearing and which he could safely remove. The mother dog watched him with those ancient, knowing eyes. When he moved closer, she did something that broke him completely. She closed her eyes and leaned her head, just barely, just a fraction of an inch, toward his hand. Trust. After everything humans had done to her, after the abuse and the abandonment, and now this, she was choosing to trust him. Nathan's vision blurred. He thought of Marcus, trapped under burning rubble, screaming his name. He thought of all the nights he'd woken up drowning in guilt, wishing he could go back, wishing he could try again. "I won't leave you," he told her, his voice raw. "Any of you. I swear to God, I won't leave you behind." He found his water bottle, carefully tilted it to her mouth. She drank desperately, but in small amounts, as if afraid to take too much. As if she'd learned that resources were scarce and she wasn't worth wasting them on. When she finished, Nathan wet his shirt and gently wiped the dust from her face. She closed her eyes again, and a single tear, an actual tear, rolled down through the dirt on her muzzle. "Okay," Nathan said, positioning himself at the edge of the rubble pile. The sun beat down mercilessly. Sweat already soaked through his shirt. His hands were shaking from adrenaline and heat and something deeper, the weight of impossible responsibility. He thought of Marcus one more time. Then he started digging. The concrete beam was the main problem. It had fallen at an angle, trapping the mother dog's body while creating a small pocket of space beneath. That pocket was the only reason the puppies were still alive. Nathan could see the engineering of it now, accidental but perfect. The mother had been standing in exactly the right spot when the earthquake hit. Or maybe not accidental. Maybe she'd chosen this spot deliberately, knowing it offered the best protection. He gripped the pry bar from his emergency kit, wedging it beneath the beam's edge. His muscles screamed as he applied pressure, using his body weight as leverage. The beam shifted a quarter inch, then another. The mother dog whimpered but held perfectly still, as if she understood that any movement could be catastrophic. "That's it," Nathan gasped. "Stay still. Just stay still." 20 minutes of excruciating work. His hands were bleeding now, torn open by the rough concrete despite his attempts at care. Sweat poured into his eyes, blurring his vision. The heat was crushing, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. And then, memory ambushed him. Different rubble, different heat. The warehouse fire 3 years ago, the ceiling collapsing in sheets of flame and timber. Marcus's voice on the radio. "Nate! Nate, I'm trapped! I can't—" Static. Then screaming. Nathan had tried to go back. The flames were too intense. His captain had physically restrained him, dragged him out while Marcus's screams grew weaker and finally stopped. "Focus," Nathan said out loud, forcing himself back to the present. "Stay here. Stay now." The beam shifted again. Enough. The mother dog could move if she wanted to, but she didn't. She stayed exactly where she was, looking down at her babies. Nathan knelt beside her, meeting her eyes. "I'm going to help you up now." Nice and slow. He slid his hands beneath her chest, feeling her ribs sharp against his palms. She couldn't have weighed more than 40 pounds, maybe 30 pounds less than she should. As he lifted, she made a sound of pain, but didn't struggle, didn't bite, just let him help her. When her body was finally free of the concrete, Nathan expected her to collapse, expected her to run or panic or simply give in to the trauma and exhaustion. Instead, she spun around immediately, ignoring her own injuries, and began digging at the rubble pile with her front paws, frantic, desperate, maternal instinct overriding everything else, even survival. Nathan's throat tightened. "I know," he said, gently taking hold of her front legs to stop her. She was too weak, too injured. She'd hurt herself worse. "I know, Mama. Let me. I promise you, I'll get them." The mother dog looked at him, really looked at him. And in that moment, Nathan felt something pass between them. A communication that transcended species, transcended language, an understanding born of shared desperation. She sat, still shaking, still whimpering, but she sat and let him work. Nathan attacked the rubble with renewed purpose. He followed her gaze, trusting her to know where her babies were better than he ever could. His fingers found a gap between concrete chunks, and he carefully, painstakingly began to widen it. Then his hand touched something soft, fur. He worked faster now, but carefully, so carefully, pulled away fist-sized pieces of concrete, created an opening, reached inside. The first puppy fit in his palm, tiny, maybe 5 weeks old, covered in dust and grime. Its eyes were shut tight. It wasn't moving. Nathan's heart stopped. Then the puppy coughed, sneezed, let out a weak, reedy cry. Alive. The mother dog made a sound Nathan had never heard before, pure, anguished relief. He brought the puppy to her, placed it gently by her side. She immediately began licking it, cleaning away the dust, checking every inch of its small body. And Nathan saw it happen. Saw hope ignite in her eyes like someone had lit a fire in a dark room. 6 more, Nathan told her, his voice breaking. I'm getting the other 6. I promise you. He dove back into the rubble. Now that he knew what he was looking for, now that he understood the space they occupied, it went faster. The second puppy came out easier, crying immediately, stronger than the first. The third was the smallest so far, but squirming with energy. The fourth puppy slid free, and Nathan placed it with its siblings. The mother was counting them, he could tell. She knew exactly how many she had. She was keeping track. "You're so smart," Nathan said, tears streaming down his face, mixing with sweat and dust. "You're so damn smart." His arms were shaking from exertion now. The heat was making him dizzy, but he kept going, reached deeper into the rubble for the 5th puppy. His fingers closed around it, pulled it free. This one wasn't moving. Nathan's breath caught. The puppy was cold despite the heat, its tiny body limp in his hands, no breathing, no movement. The mother dog made a different sound now. Anguished, knowing. "No," Nathan whispered. "No. Come on, little one. Come on." He placed 2 fingers on the puppy's tiny chest, began gentle compressions, counted in his head, 15 compressions, bent down, gave 2 tiny puffs of air into its mouth. Nothing. 15 more. 2 more breaths. The mother dog was watching, trembling all over. 20 seconds. 30. "Please," Nathan begged. "Please don't make me tell her I couldn't save you." 40 seconds. The puppy gasped, coughed. Its little chest expanded, and it let out a weak, warbling cry. Nathan collapsed back on his heels, the puppy cradled against his chest, both of them breathing hard. He was shaking so violently he could barely hold on. The mother dog made that sound again, the one of pure relief. And when Nathan placed the 5th puppy with its siblings, she licked it frantically as if confirming for herself that it was real, that it was alive. Nathan sat there for a moment, letting himself break, letting the tears come. He'd saved one. He'd brought one back from the edge. But there were still 2 more. He wiped his face with his torn, bloody hands and went back to the rubble. The 6th puppy came quickly, as if it had been waiting for him. Healthy, vocal, immediately crying for its mother. Nathan placed it in the growing pile of small bodies, watching as the mother inspected each one in turn, her movements systematic, thorough. She was counting. She knew. 1 more. Nathan reached into the deepest part of the pocket, his arm buried up to the shoulder in the narrow gap. His fingers brushed fur, closed around the last tiny body, and carefully, so carefully, he extracted the 7th puppy. This one opened its eyes as soon as it hit the air, looked right at Nathan, let out a strong, indignant cry that said it was hungry and angry and very much alive. Nathan started laughing. Couldn't help it. The sound came out half sob, half hysteria, but it was real. He placed the 7th puppy with its mother, and she, this broken, abused, starved dog, who had every reason to hate humans, looked at Nathan with something that transcended gratitude. It was trust, complete, absolute trust. "All 7, Nathan said, his voice wrecked. "All 7 of them. You kept them all alive." The mother dog lay down fully for the first time, and all 7 puppies immediately swarmed her, seeking warmth and milk and safety. She circled her body around them, creating a wall of protection even now, even here in the open air with the danger past. Nathan heard the vehicles before he saw them. Dr. Sarah Mitchell's veterinary van came bouncing over the rough terrain, followed by a second vehicle. A skinny teenage boy jumped out of the passenger seat before the van had fully stopped. Tommy Reeves, one of the rescue's young volunteers. Sarah was in her late 30s, with kind eyes that had seen too much suffering and still somehow remained kind. She took one look at the scene: Nathan covered in blood and dust, the skeletal mother dog, the 7 impossibly small puppies, and her professional composure cracked. "My God," she breathed. "How is this possible?" "She gave them everything," Nathan said simply. "Every drop of milk, every ounce of warmth, for 3 weeks. Tommy stood frozen, staring at the puppies with tears streaming down his young face. At 16, he was trying so hard to be tough, to leave behind whatever had landed him in the juvenile diversion program that required these volunteer hours, but right now, he was just a kid watching a miracle. Sarah knelt beside the mother dog, speaking softly as she began her examination. The dog remained calm, allowing the inspection, though her eyes never left Nathan. "Severe malnutrition," Sarah said, her voice clinical but strained. "Dehydration. These rib fractures are old, at least 2, maybe 3 months. This embedded collar wound—" She paused, her jaw tightening. "This happened over a period of months, maybe years." "Someone did this to her," Nathan said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." Sarah's fingers found the microchip scanner in her kit. "Let me check for—" She stopped, scanned again. "She's chipped. Registered to—" Sarah's face went pale as she read the screen. "Derek Sutton, San Bernardino address. Can we trace him? It's all in the database." "Name, address, phone number?" Sarah looked up at Nathan. "Legally, she belongs to him. We have to notify—" "Like hell." "Nathan." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "Look at her scars. We document everything, every injury. We build a case. But we do this the right way, or we lose everything. The rescue, our license, any chance of keeping her safe permanently." Nathan knew she was right. Hated that she was right. But he nodded. They worked together to move the mother dog and puppies into a specially prepared pen in the van. The mother never took her eyes off Nathan, even as Sarah started an IV line, even as Tommy carefully wrapped each puppy in warming blankets. "I'm coming with you," Nathan said. It wasn't a request. Sarah didn't argue. The ride back to Second Chances took 40 minutes. Nathan sat in the back, his hand resting on the mother dog's head. She leaned into his touch, her eyes finally closing. The first real rest she'd allowed herself in 3 weeks. At the rescue center, they set up a recovery room, a large, quiet pen with soft bedding, warming lights, and medical equipment close at hand. Sarah worked through the night, treating wounds, administering fluids and antibiotics, running tests. The puppies were surprisingly healthy, given their ordeal. Underweight, yes. In need of immediate care, yes. But alive. All 7 of them. The mother was another story. "Multiple old fractures that healed incorrectly," Sarah reported as dawn broke. "The leg, 3 ribs, probably her tail at some point. Dental trauma consistent with biting through chains or ropes. Chronic starvation. And this?" She showed Nathan the X-rays of the embedded collar site. "This was left on her for at least 6 months. Probably longer." Nathan stared at the images, rage building in his chest like pressure in a sealed container. "There's something else," Sarah said quietly. She pulled up another scan on her tablet. "Second microchip. Older, deactivated. Second, I traced it. She was part of the San Bernardino Police K-9 program, candidate number 147. Sarah scrolled through records. Top of her class in everything: obedience, intelligence, physical fitness. But she failed final certification. Why? Sarah showed him the evaluation form. Under reason for disqualification, someone had written, "insufficient aggression." Refused to engage in bite scenario with teenage suspect. Recommended for family placement rather than law enforcement. Nathan felt something shift inside him. They rejected her because she had compassion? Looks that way. She was sold at a police auction for $500. Guess who bought her? Derek Sutton. He got a highly trained, intelligent German shepherd for a fraction of her worth because the system decided she was defective. Sarah's voice was tight with anger. She wasn't defective. She was merciful. Nathan spent the next 3 days at the rescue center, barely leaving the mother dog's side. He slept on a cot next to her pen, hand-fed her small amounts of food every few hours, talked to her constantly, his voice a steady presence in her world of pain and recovery. On the 3rd day, she did something that made him cry all over again. She wagged her tail, just a small movement, barely perceptible. But it was there. Joy, trust, hope. "Hey there, beautiful," Nathan whispered, stroking her head. "You're going to be okay. You and your babies. I promise." The puppies were growing stronger by the day, their cries louder, their movements more coordinated. The mother watched them with fierce devotion, cleaning them, nursing them, never letting them out of her sight. Tommy came by every day after school, sitting with the puppies, socializing them, talking to Nathan about everything and nothing. "I did something bad once," Tommy said on the 4th day, not looking at Nathan. "To a dog. Couple years ago." Nathan waited, not pushing. "There was this stray. Some guys I knew said I had to kick it, to prove I was tough enough for—" He trailed off. "I did it. I kicked that dog. Saw the fear in its eyes." "And now?" Nathan asked quietly. "Now I see that same fear every time she flinches." Tommy nodded toward the mother dog. "I can't undo what I did to that stray. But maybe I can do better here. Be better." "That's how it works," Nathan said. "One choice at a time." On the 5th day, an elderly woman appeared at the rescue center door. Margaret Holloway, 72 years old, Nathan's neighbor from the small rental house. She carried a tin of homemade cookies and wore a nervous smile. "I heard about the rescue," she said softly. "On the news. I wondered if you needed help. I have time." Too much time, really. Nathan recognized loneliness when he saw it. He'd been drowning in it himself for 3 years. "The puppies could use company," he said. "Someone to talk to them, socialize them. Are you interested?" Maggie's whole face lit up. She started coming every day, sitting by the pen, reading aloud to the puppies from library books, telling them stories about her late husband Harold, about her children who lived too far away to visit. The mother dog, still unnamed, accepted Maggie's presence, allowed her to pet the puppies. Even, on the 6th day, allowed Maggie to gently stroke her head. "I was married for 40 years, Maggie told Nathan quietly one afternoon. "Harold never hit me, but he was controlling, made me small, made me feel like I was living in a cage." She looked at the mother dog. "I see myself in her eyes. Both of us spent so long being hurt that we forgot what it felt like to be free." "You want to adopt one of the puppies?" Nathan asked. And he'd seen it coming. Maggie nodded. "When they're ready, if you think I can handle it. You're 72, not dead, and something tells me you've got more fight in you than you think." On the 7th day, Tommy came running into the recovery room, his phone in his hand. "I found him. Derek Sutton. I found everything." He'd done deep research, newspaper archives, public records, social media. The picture that emerged was of a man drowning in grief and rage, Derek's ex-wife, Susan. Divorced in 2010, their son, Ethan, who died in 2017. Military records listed it as KIA in Afghanistan, but Tommy had found forum posts, whispered rumors, a deleted obituary that told a different story. Suicide. And before that, way before that, a small death notice in the San Bernardino Sun from 2009. A golden retriever named Buddy with an unusual obituary, beloved pet of the Sutton family, died protecting Ethan from a rattlesnake. A true hero. Nathan and Tommy drove to Derek's old neighborhood that evening, found an elderly Chinese woman, Mrs. Chen, who remembered everything. "That poor dog," she said, meaning the German shepherd. "Always crying at night. Derek would yell, we'd hear things breaking. I called the police twice, but they said without evidence." Another neighbor remembered Ethan. "Sweet kid, loved animals. After his dog Buddy died, he changed, stopped smiling, and Derek was never the same after Ethan left." The pieces were falling into place. A picture of cascading trauma. A boy who lost his dog. A father who failed to save it. A family that shattered. A son who died. A father who bought another dog to punish, to prove something, to make sense of senseless pain. And a dog who survived it all. Back at the rescue center, Nathan stood before the mother dog's pen. She looked at him with those knowing eyes, and he thought about second chances, about redemption, about the distance between who we are and who we choose to become. "We're going to protect you," he promised her, "whatever it takes." The mother dog's tail wagged again, stronger this time. She believed him. Derek Sutton walked through the door of Second Chance's Animal Rescue on a Wednesday morning, 8 days after Nathan had pulled a dying dog and 7 puppies from the rubble. He was shorter than Nathan expected, maybe 5'8", with a beer gut straining against a stained T-shirt. His face was red and puffy, the kind of complexion that came from years of heavy drinking. But his eyes were sober today, and they held something Nathan recognized from his own mirror. Pain. The kind that never went away. Derek carried a newspaper clipping in his hand, the story that had run in the Riverside Press Enterprise. Miracle rescue. Mother dog and 7 puppies survived 3 weeks, buried alive. The photo showed Nathan kneeling beside the mother dog, both of them exhausted, both of them alive. "That's my dog," Derek said to the receptionist. His voice was rough, used to yelling. "I want her back." Sarah came out of her office, her professional mask firmly in place. "Mr. Sutton." "I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell. If you'll come with me." "I don't need to come anywhere. I have papers, registration. The microchip is in my name." He slapped a folder on the desk. "That's my property, and I'm taking her home." Nathan heard the commotion from the recovery room. His blood turned to ice, then to fire. He walked out slowly, forcing himself to stay calm, to not do what every cell in his body was screaming at him to do. Derek saw him and sneered. "You the one who found her?" "I'm the one who saved her." "Saved what's mine, you mean? I should be thanking you, I guess. But I'll just take my dog and go." "Like hell you will." Nathan moved closer, and Tommy appeared from the back room, young and angry, and ready to throw himself into whatever fight was coming. "Nathan," Sarah warned, "let me handle this." But Nathan couldn't stop, couldn't watch this man, this abuser who'd broken something beautiful, just walk away. "Look at her scars. Look at what you did to her. I don't have to explain myself to you. You chained her so tight the collar grew into her skin. You broke her ribs. You starved her. And when she ran away pregnant, you were probably relieved." Derek's face went purple. "You don't know anything about me." "Then tell me," Nathan shouted. "Tell me what kind of man does that to an animal?" The room went silent. Sarah stepped between them, her hand on Nathan's chest. "Both of you, stop, right now." Derek was shaking, his fists clenched, but he didn't swing. Instead, something in him seemed to crack. "Everything leaves," he said, his voice suddenly hollow. "Everything dies. People, dogs, everything." Nathan saw it then, the grief underneath the anger. "Ethan," he said quietly, and Buddy before him. Derek's head snapped up. "How do you—" "I know about the rattlesnake. I know Buddy saved your son's life and you didn't save Buddy's. I know Ethan never forgave you. And I know what happened in Afghanistan." Nathan's voice softened. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss." Derek's face crumpled for just a moment, then hardened again. "Don't you dare! Don't you dare talk about my son! I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to understand why you hurt her." "Because she wouldn't break," Derek exploded. "I wanted to prove it, that love makes you weak, that caring about something just gives the world a weapon to destroy you. I wanted to make her hard, mean, cold, like she should be, like I should have made myself before." He stopped, breathing hard. "Before Ethan died," Nathan finished. "Before I failed him. Again." Derek's shoulders sagged. "I have a legal right to that dog. She's registered to me. The microchip proves it." Sarah spoke carefully. "You do have legal standing, but Mr. Sutton, we've documented extensive evidence of abuse. Old fractures, embedded collar wounds, signs of chronic starvation. If we file charges, then file them." Derek's voice was bitter. "Add it to everything else I've done wrong, but that doesn't change the law. She's mine, and you have 24 hours to return her, or I call the police and charge you with theft." He turned and walked out. Tommy started after him, but Nathan caught his arm. "Don't. He can't just take her back. We have to do this right," Sarah said firmly. "We document everything. We file with animal control. We build a legal case. But if we refuse to return a dog to her registered owner without a court order, we lose our license. We lose the rescue. And we lose any ability to help the hundreds of other animals that need us." Nathan knew she was right. Hated it, but knew it. "I need to find him," Nathan said. "Really talk to him. Not like this." "Nathan." "I know about grief that makes you crazy," Nathan said. "I know about guilt that makes you hurt the things you should protect. If there's any chance of reaching him—" He didn't wait for permission. Derek's house was 40 minutes away in San Bernardino, a small rancher in a neighborhood that had seen better days. The lawn was dead. The paint was peeling. Nathan knocked, and when Derek opened the door at 2 in the afternoon, he was already drunk. "What the hell do you want?" "To talk." "5 minutes." Derek laughed bitterly, but stepped aside. "Why not?" "Come see the museum of my failures." The inside of the house was worse than the outside. But what struck Nathan wasn't the mess or the smell of stale alcohol. It was the shrine. Photographs of Ethan everywhere. On every wall, every surface. School pictures, sports team photos, military portraits. The living room was dominated by a flag in a triangle frame and a row of medals displayed beneath it, and in the corner, kept like a holy relic, was a dog bed with a faded blue collar laid carefully on top. Buddy's collar. "I know about Marcus," Derek said, sitting heavily on the couch. "Looked you up. Firefighter. Lost your partner in a building collapse. Got PTSD. Lost your wife. Now you save dogs to make yourself feel better." He took a drink from the bottle on the coffee table. "We're not so different, you and me. We're nothing alike." "No?" Derek's laugh was ugly. "We both failed people we loved. We both live with it every day. Only difference is, you get to be the hero now, and I'm just the villain in your story." Nathan sat down across from him. "Tell me about Buddy." "Why?" "Because I need to understand." Derek was silent for a long time. Then slowly he began to talk. The story came out in pieces. 8-year-old Ethan playing in the backyard, the rattlesnake, Buddy throwing himself between the snake and the boy, getting bitten in the process, Ethan screaming for his father. "I was drunk," Derek said flatly. "Middle of the afternoon, and I was drunk. Ethan was crying, begging me to take Buddy to the vet, and I said," his voice broke, "I said it was just a dog, that we couldn't afford it, that he'd be fine. But he wasn't. He died that night, in Ethan's arms." Derek wiped his face with his hand. My son looked at me like I was a monster, and he was right. The divorce came a year later. Ethan chose to live with his mother. Stopped talking to Derek entirely. At 18, he enlisted in the Army. I thought maybe the military would make him strong, teach him not to care so much. Derek's laugh was broken. I was so goddamn stupid. He got up, went to a back room, came back with a letter, worn from being read too many times. "This is what they don't tell you. What the military report doesn't say." He handed it to Nathan. The letter was in a young man's handwriting, neat and careful. Nathan read it, and with every line, his heart broke a little more. "Dad, I'm writing this because I can't say it out loud. And when Buddy died, you said it was just a dog, but he wasn't. He was the only thing that loved me when I didn't love myself. And you let him die because you were too proud, too drunk, too angry to admit you were wrong. You taught me that love is weakness, that caring makes you vulnerable. So I learned. I learned so well. I loved my squad mates and watched them die. I loved this country and watched it forget us. Now I can't love anything without drowning in the fear of losing it. I can't live like this anymore, Dad. I can't be you, and I can't be me. So I'm choosing neither. Don't blame yourself. You already taught me that blame is easier than change. Ethan." Nathan's hands were shaking when he finished reading. The report said Afghanistan. Combat. Easier for everyone that way? His mother couldn't handle the truth. The military was happy to let it be classified as KIA for the insurance. Derek took the letter back, held it like it was made of glass. "He shot himself in the barracks, 20 years old, and his last thought was probably about a dog I let die when he was 8. The silence stretched between them, heavy with shared understanding. "So I bought Grace," Derek continued, "spent $500 on a police-trained dog they said was defective because she wouldn't bite people. I thought if I could break her, make her mean, make her cold, I could prove Ethan was wrong. That love was the problem. But she wouldn't break. No matter what I did to her, she stayed good, gentle, loyal." Derek's voice cracked. "She ran away 6 months ago. I was almost relieved. But then I saw that picture of her saving her puppies and I—" "You what?" "I realize she's stronger than I'll ever be. She survived everything I did to her and still knows how to love." Derek looked up at Nathan with red-rimmed eyes. "So what now? You want me to just give her up? Let her go?" Nathan leaned forward. "I want you to do what Ethan needed you to do for Buddy. The right thing, even if it's hard, even if it hurts." Derek stared at him for a long moment. Then he stood up, walked to a desk, and pulled out papers. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He lay in his cot beside the mother dog's pen at Second Chances, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Derek and Ethan and Marcus and all the ways grief could twist a person into something unrecognizable. At 11 o'clock, his phone rang. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, her voice tight with fear. "Nathan, get to the clinic room. Now." He was running before she finished the sentence. The smallest puppy, the one who'd stopped breathing during the rescue, the one Nathan had brought back, was seizing in the warming incubator, its tiny body convulsed, legs rigid, mouth foaming. Sarah already had equipment out, was drawing medication into a syringe. Tommy stood in the corner, his face white, fists clenched helplessly. "What's happening?" Nathan demanded. "Seizure. I've given diazepam, but—" Sarah's hands moved with practiced precision, checking vitals, adjusting monitors. "Nathan, we need to get him to the emergency vet hospital. There's something wrong." "Something I can't treat here." The seizure stopped after 90 seconds that felt like 90 years. The puppy lay limp, breathing shallowly, its small chest rising and falling in an irregular rhythm. Sarah worked through the night, and by dawn she had an answer. A terrible answer. "Ventricular septal defect," she said, showing Nathan the portable echocardiogram results. "It's a hole in his heart. Congenital. He was born with it." "Can you fix it?" "Not here. It requires cardiac surgery, a specialist, and—" She paused, the numbers on her tablet speaking louder than words. $8,000, maybe more. Nathan felt the ground shift beneath him. His disability pension was $2,400 a month. His bank account had $847 until the next check. He already owed money from the divorce settlement, from the years of trying to drink away the nightmares about Marcus. "How long does he have without surgery?" Sarah's face told him everything before she spoke. "Days, maybe a week." "I'm sorry, Nathan." The mother dog was watching from her pen. She'd heard the commotion, had been pacing, whimpering, knowing something was wrong with her baby. Now she stood at the gate, looking at Nathan with those ancient, trusting eyes, eyes that said, "You promised." Tommy spoke up, his voice cracking. "I have $200 for my job at the grocery store. You can have it." "Tommy, I kicked a dog once. I can't save that one. But maybe I can save this one." Maggie arrived at 7 in the morning with breakfast she'd made for the volunteers. When she heard, she pulled Nathan aside. "I have $3,000 in savings. Harold's life insurance. I was saving it for, I don't know what, something important." She looked at the puppy, so small and fragile in the incubator. "This is important. Maggie, that's your security." "Security?" She laughed, but it was sad. "I'm 72 years old and I eat dinner alone every night. Money won't make me less lonely. But maybe saving a life will make me feel less useless." Nathan called the cardiac specialist in San Diego. Dr. Robert Chen could do the surgery, but his schedule was full for 3 weeks. Unless it was an emergency, which it was. "I can fit him in tomorrow afternoon," Dr. Chen said, "but I'll need payment up front, $8,000 for the surgery, plus post-operative care." Nathan looked at his truck in the parking lot, a 2015 Ford F-150 with 160,000 miles on it. He'd bought it used with money from his first year's pension. It was the only thing of value he owned. Blue Book value, $6,500. He called a dealership. They could come look at it that afternoon. Sarah found him in the parking lot at noon, sitting on the tailgate, staring at nothing. "Nathan, you can't sell your truck. It's your only transportation." "Then I'll walk. It's 5 miles to get here from your house." "Then I'll walk 5 miles. He looked at her and his eyes were dry but desperate. "Don't you understand? I made her a promise. I told her I wouldn't let her babies die. I looked that dog in the eye and I promised." "This isn't about Marcus." "Of course it's about Marcus," Nathan shouted, then caught himself, lowered his voice. "I couldn't save him. I had to leave him behind. And it destroyed me. But I can save this puppy. I can keep one promise. Just one." Sarah sat beside him on the tailgate. "There's another option. We could fundraise, post the story online, ask for donations. That takes time. Time we don't have." His phone rang. Unknown number. Nathan almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Nathan Cross?" A woman's voice, vaguely familiar. Yes? This is Lisa Martinez, Marcus's widow. Nathan's world tilted. He hadn't spoken to Lisa in over a year, had been avoiding her calls, drowning in guilt every time he saw her name on his phone. Lisa, I saw the news story about the dog and the puppies. I saw your face in that photo, Nathan. I saw you alive, really alive, for the first time since Marcus died. Nathan couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. He called me, Lisa continued, right before the end. On the radio. Did you know that? No. The word came out broken. He told me to tell you something. I should have told you at the funeral, but you wouldn't talk to me. You wouldn't talk to anyone. She paused, and Nathan heard her take a shaky breath. He said, "Tell Nate it's not his fault. I chose to stay. Someone had to make it out. Tell him to keep saving people. He's good at the job. Tell him I'm proud." Nathan was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. "He didn't die because you left him, Nathan. He died so you could live, and look what you're doing with that life, saving those who can't save themselves. Marcus would be so damn proud." "I don't know if I can save this puppy," Nathan whispered. "I don't have enough money." "How much do you need?" $5,000 more. After I sell my truck, and I'm sending you $5,000 today from Marcus's life insurance." "Lisa, I can't. You're not taking it. Marcus is giving it, 3 years late, but he's giving it. Save that puppy. Save that dog. Save yourself." Her voice was firm, loving, final. "Let people help you, Nathan. That's not weakness. That's what Marcus died for, so you could live, so you could let people in." She hung up before he could argue. Nathan sat on the tailgate, his phone in his hands, and for the first time in 3 years the weight of Marcus's death felt different, not lighter, but bearable. Tommy came running out. "Nathan, you need to come inside. Derek's here." Derek Sutton stood in the waiting area of Second Chance's Animal Rescue, and he looked different, sober, clean-shaven. His clothes were pressed, his hair combed. In his hands he held a folder of papers and something else, a checkbook. Nathan walked in, expecting a fight. Instead, Derek looked at him with eyes that held something new, not quite peace, but maybe the beginning of acceptance. "I went to Ethan's grave last night," Derek said without preamble. "First time in a year. I couldn't face it before. Couldn't face him." Sarah emerged from her office, Tommy hovering protectively nearby. The reception area felt too small for all the tension and grief and hope compressed into it. "I told him about the dog," Derek continued. "About you. About what you said to me." His voice cracked slightly. "And I heard him. In my head, I mean. I heard what he would say if he could." "What was that?" Nathan asked quietly. "Dad, let her go. Let them all go. Let yourself go." Derek pulled out the relinquishment papers from his folder. They were already signed, dated, notarized. "She's yours, legally, permanently. I'm giving up all claim to her and the puppies." Nathan took the papers with shaking hands, barely able to believe what he was seeing. "There's more," Derek said. He opened the checkbook, wrote quickly, tore out a check and handed it to Nathan. "For the puppies' surgery and whatever else they need." Nathan looked at the check. $10,000. "Derek, it's not enough. It'll never be enough." Derek's face was wet with tears now. "But it's what I have. Ethan's life insurance. I couldn't touch it. It felt like blood money. But now—" He looked toward the recovery room where the mother dog waited. "Ethan loved animals. He'd want this. He'd want me to finally do the right thing." Sarah stepped forward, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine surprise. "Mr. Sutton, this is incredibly generous." "It's not generous. It's overdue." Derek pulled out another document. I'm also setting up a fund, $500,000 for second chances, in Ethan's name, for animals that have been abused, for ones that need medical care, for... He stopped, struggling. For second chances, the kind I never gave my son, the kind that dog deserves. The room went completely silent. Tommy was the first to speak, his teenage voice high with disbelief. $500,000? It's sitting in an account I haven't touched since they paid out the policy. Every time I looked at it, I saw Ethan's face, heard his voice in that letter. Derek wiped his eyes roughly. I can't bring him back, can't bring Buddy back, can't undo what I did to Grace. But maybe this is a start. Nathan didn't know what to say. Wanted to believe this was real, but years of seeing false promises and broken changes made him cautious. Derek seemed to read his thoughts. I'm going to rehab, VA program, 90 days. I leave tomorrow morning. He met Nathan's eyes. When I get out, if you'll let me, I'd like to volunteer here. Not with the dogs. I'm not ready for that. Maybe not ever. But cleaning kennels, maintenance, whatever useful thing I can do that doesn't require me to be trusted with vulnerable creatures. You hurt her, Nathan said. It needed to be said. Badly. That doesn't just disappear because you write a check. I know. Derek's voice was steady. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm asking for a chance to do better, to be better, to stop the cycle of harm. Sarah looked at Nathan, the question clear in her eyes. This was his call. Nathan thought about Marcus, about the choice to leave him behind, the choice that haunted every nightmare, about Lisa's words on the phone, "He died so you could live." He thought about the mother dog who'd been betrayed by humans and still chose to trust again, who'd survived Derek's abuse and still managed to love her puppies with everything she had. 90 days sober, Nathan said finally. You complete the program, you come back clean, we'll talk about volunteering. But Derek, he stepped closer, his voice dropping. If you ever hurt another animal, if you fall back into that darkness and take it out on something helpless, I will personally make sure you never get near a rescue again. Are we clear? Crystal. Derek nodded. Thank you. That's more grace than I've earned. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Can I see her? Just for a moment? Nathan looked at Sarah. She nodded slowly. They walked to the recovery room together. The mother dog was lying with her 7 puppies, all of them nursing, all of them safe. When Derek appeared in the doorway, she lifted her head. For a moment, Nathan tensed, ready to intervene if she showed fear or aggression, but the mother dog did neither. She looked at Derek, really looked at him, and Derek looked back, his face crumbling with the weight of everything he'd done, everything he'd destroyed, everything he could never fix. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. The mother dog didn't wag her tail, didn't approach him. But she didn't cower either. She simply held his gaze for 5 long seconds, then deliberately turned back to her puppies. She had acknowledged him, and then she had chosen her children over her pain. Derek made a sound, half sob, half laugh, and turned away. She's magnificent, he said to Nathan. Don't let anyone ever tell her different. After Derek left, Sarah transferred the puppy, Nathan had started calling him Chance, to the veterinary hospital in San Diego. The surgery was scheduled for 4 p.m. Tommy insisted on riding along, promising to stay the entire time, to be there when Chance woke up. I need to, Tommy said simply. I need to be there for him. Nathan stayed with the mother dog. He sat beside her pen, and she moved close to the gate, pressing her nose through the bars to rest against his hand. Your baby's going to be okay, Nathan told her. I promise. He's going to live. The surgery lasted 3 hours. Nathan paced the entire time. Sarah tried to get him to eat, to rest, but he couldn't. All he could do was walk circles in the rescue center and check his phone every 30 seconds. At 7:15 p.m., Tommy texted a photo. It showed Chance lying in a recovery crate, a small white bandage on his tiny chest, an oxygen line near his nose. His eyes were open. He was breathing on his own. The text read, "Surgery successful. Dr. Chen says he'll live a normal life with medication. He's a fighter, just like his mom." Nathan showed the photo to the mother dog. She sniffed the phone screen, whined softly, then seemed to understand. Her body relaxed. She lay down, surrounded by her other 6 puppies, and for the first time since Nathan had found her, she slept deeply. 5 days later, Chance came home. The reunion was captured on video by one of the volunteers, the mother dog inspecting her smallest baby, sniffing the surgical site, licking him gently but thoroughly. The other puppies swarmed their brother, and the mother circled all 7 of them into a tight pile of warm bodies and wagging tails. Tommy posted the video online with a simple caption, "Against all odds, against all pain, love survives." Within 48 hours, it had 5 million views. The comments section was flooded with tears, with hope, with people sharing their own stories of survival and rescue, and the second chances that saved their lives. And in San Bernardino, a man named Derek Sutton watched the video on his phone from his room at the VA treatment center and cried. 6 months later, on a bright February morning in 2025, Nathan Cross stood in the backyard of Second Chance's Animal Rescue and watched a miracle unfold in ordinary daylight. 7 German Shepherd puppies, no longer tiny, now gangly 6-month-old adolescents with oversized paws and boundless energy, tumbled across the grass in joyful chaos. They'd grown into themselves, each with distinct personalities, each thriving in their adopted homes. This was the first monthly reunion, an idea that had seemed impossible back in August when they were still fighting to survive. Now, it was real, and it was perfect. The mother dog, officially named Grace by unanimous vote, stood at the center of the yard, and Nathan watched her count. There was no other word for it. She moved through the circle of her children methodically, sniffing each one, inspecting them, checking their health with the thoroughness only a mother could manage. Hope, adopted by an elementary school teacher, was now a certified therapy dog who visited children with anxiety. She sat patiently as Grace licked her face, her tail wagging in slow, respectful movements. Faith, living with a retired Army veteran named James Mitchell, bore the calm confidence of a PTSD service dog in training. She pressed close to Grace, and Nathan saw James wipe tears from his weathered face as he watched the reunion. Courage belonged to the Johnson family. Their 2 young children, ages 6 and 8, had written Nathan a letter every week describing Courage's progress in obedience training and how he'd taught them about responsibility and gentleness. Scout was being trained for wilderness search and rescue by a SAR team in Northern California. His handler, a woman named Rebecca Chen, had driven 8 hours just for this reunion. "He saved a lost hiker last month," she told Nathan. "Found her in under 2 hours. He's a natural." Grace Jr. lived at the rescue center as an ambassador dog, gentle and patient with traumatized animals who came through the doors. She would have one carefully planned litter someday, continuing her mother's legacy. Buddy Jr., named by Maggie Holloway before any of them knew the terrible irony of that choice, was the calmest of the 7. At 73, Maggie had completed her veterinary technician certification and now worked part-time at Second Chances. The transformation in her had been stunning. She'd reconnected with her daughter in Seattle, had started dating a widower named George from her church, and had told Nathan last week, "I spent 50 years being who everyone else needed me to be." Grace taught me it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. And then there was Chance. The smallest puppy, the one who'd stopped breathing in the rubble, the one who'd seized and nearly died, the one whose heart had required $8,000 of surgery to repair. He stayed with Nathan permanently. They were inseparable. Chance slept beside Nathan's bed, followed him everywhere, and somehow, through pure instinct or perhaps through learning from his mother, had developed an uncanny ability to sense Nathan's PTSD episodes before they happened. When the nightmares came, when Marcus's screams echoed in Nathan's sleeping mind, Chance would wake him gently, would place his small paw on Nathan's chest, applying just enough pressure to ground him in the present, would stay there until Nathan's breathing steadied and the terror passed. "He's not just healed," Dr. Sarah Mitchell had observed one night when she'd stayed over, a frequent occurrence now as their relationship had grown from professional respect to genuine love. "He's a healer." Sarah stood beside Nathan now, her hand in his, watching the reunion with eyes that held both joy and grief. She'd lost her daughter Lily to cancer 2 years ago, and for a long time she'd been afraid to let herself love anything again. Afraid of the pain that came with caring. Grace had taught her something different, had shown her that love wasn't the problem, fear of loss was, and that living in fear of future pain meant missing the beauty of present joy. They were engaged now, would marry in April at the rescue center with Grace as the maid of honor. It was Sarah's idea, and Nathan had cried when she suggested it because it was so perfectly, absurdly right. Tommy Reeves had graduated high school with honors and was now enrolled in a veterinary technician program at the community college. He still volunteered at Second Chances 20 hours a week, still carried the guilt of kicking a dog 2 years ago, but he'd learned to channel that guilt into action rather than self-destruction. He'd been the one to suggest the monthly reunions. "They're family," he'd said simply. "Family doesn't forget each other just because they live in different houses." Now he stood with Marcus, his own rescue dog, a pit bull pulled from a fighting ring, and watched Grace with her children. Marcus the dog leaned against Tommy's leg, scarred and patient and learning to trust again, and Nathan thought about cycles, about how pain could cascade through generations, or how healing could if you chose to let it. The families gathered for a group photo. Nathan called everyone together, and the chaos of getting 7 energetic puppies, 8 adult humans, and 2 adult dogs into frame was exactly the kind of beautiful disaster that made life worth living. Grace stood at the center, surrounded by her children. Nathan knelt beside her, his hand on her head. Sarah stood on his other side. Maggie held Buddy Jr. Tommy had Marcus. James had Faith. The other families circled around. The volunteer photographer counted down. 3, 2, 1. The shutter clicked. The moment was captured. From rubble to redemption, one frame of film to prove that miracles still happened in ordinary places to ordinary people, when they chose to care more than they chose to protect themselves from pain. But then Nathan noticed someone standing at the back fence, partially obscured by shadow. Derek Sutton. He'd completed his 90 days at the VA treatment center, had been sober for 6 months and 4 days. Nathan knew because Derek called him every week to check in, to report his progress, to ask if it was time yet. Nathan had told him he could come to the reunion, told him to stay at the back, to observe, not to approach. Derek had come. And now he stood there watching, his face wet with tears as he saw what his money had helped create. The Ethan Sutton Memorial Fund had already helped save 43 animals in 6 months. Had paid for surgeries, medical care, rehabilitation for abused and neglected creatures who'd been given up on by everyone else. It wouldn't bring Ethan back, wouldn't erase the years of harm Derek had caused, but it was something, a start, a choice to do better. Nathan caught Derek's eye across the yard, gave him a small nod. Derek nodded back, then turned and walked away without trying to get closer. He was respecting boundaries, learning that love sometimes meant distance, that the best thing he could do for Grace was to give her space to heal without his presence triggering old trauma. It was progress, small but real. After the families left and the yard quieted, Nathan and Sarah sat on the back porch with Grace, Chance, and Grace Jr. The sun was setting, painting the California sky in shades of orange and gold. Grace lay between them, her head on Nathan's lap, completely at peace. Her coat was full and shiny now, her weight healthy, her ribs no longer visible. The scars remained, on her ear, her neck, her legs, but Nathan had refused cosmetic surgery. They're part of her story, he'd told Sarah. She earned them. They stay. Grace had become the face of second chances. Her image, that haunting photo of her half-buried in rubble, eyes filled with desperate hope, was now the organization's logo. Beneath it, 7 stars represented her puppies, and above it, a simple phrase: every life deserves a second chance. The viral video had brought unprecedented attention. Donations had poured in, over $100,000 beyond Derek's contribution. Volunteers had multiplied. Adoption applications numbered in the thousands. They'd rescued over 300 animals in the 6 months since Grace's rescue. Had found homes for 240. Had built a new medical wing with Derek's donation, named it the Ethan Sutton Memorial Wing, and dedicated it specifically to trauma recovery. Derek had attended the dedication ceremony, had stood at the back, sober and silent, while Nathan spoke about second chances and breaking cycles and how one dog's survival had changed everything. Afterward, Grace had done something unexpected. She'd walked up to Derek, not close, but closer than she'd ever been voluntarily, and sat down about 10 feet away. She'd looked at him for a long moment. She didn't wag her tail, didn't approach for pets, but she didn't cower either. She simply acknowledged him, showed him she was no longer afraid, showed him she had survived him and moved beyond him, and then she'd walked back to Nathan, and that had been the end of it. Derek had whispered, "Thank you," and left immediately, and Nathan had understood. Grace had given Derek the only forgiveness she was capable of giving, not reconciliation, not trust, but the simple gift of showing him she was free. Now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Nathan's phone buzzed with a text from Lisa Martinez, Marcus's widow. She'd become a regular presence in his life again, a friend who understood survivor's guilt because she carried her own version of it. The text included a photo, Lisa at Marcus's grave placing fresh flowers, and beneath it, told him about the wedding, about Grace and the puppies, about you finally living again. I think he's smiling, Nathan. Wherever he is, he's proud of you. Nathan showed the text to Sarah. She squeezed his hand and leaned her head on his shoulder. He'd love Grace, Sarah said quietly. Marcus. He'd love her story. He'd love that we're not letting our pasts define our futures. Nathan scratched behind Grace's ears. That we're choosing to move forward. Grace's tail thumped against the porch. 3 months later, on a warm April afternoon, Nathan Cross married Dr. Sarah Mitchell in the backyard of Second Chance's Animal Rescue. The ceremony was small, just 50 guests, mostly volunteers and staff, with the 7 families who'd adopted Grace's puppies in the front row. Grace served as maid of honor, walking down the aisle ahead of Sarah wearing a collar of white flowers. The sight of her, confident, healthy, beautiful, made half the guests cry before the bride even appeared. Tommy was Nathan's best man, standing tall in a suit that made him look older than his 17 years, Marcus the pit bull sitting obediently at his feet. Maggie officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. At 73, she radiated joy and purpose, and Nathan thought about how saving one dog had somehow saved all of them in different ways. When it came time for vows, Nathan's voice broke as he spoke. 3 years ago, I was buried under my own rubble, trapped by grief and guilt and the belief that I'd failed everyone who ever mattered. I was going through the motions of living, but not actually alive. He looked at Sarah, then down at Grace, sitting beside him. And then I heard a cry for help, and I had a choice. Walk away like I'd been doing for 3 years, or try again, risk again, care again. His hand rested on Grace's head. She leaned into his touch. Grace taught me that survival isn't enough, that we have to choose to really live, even when we're terrified, even when everything in us says it's safer to stay numb. He took Sarah's hands. You taught me that opening my heart again doesn't dishonor what I've lost. It honors it. Marcus died so I could live, and you're teaching me how. There wasn't a dry eye in the gathering. Sarah's vows were shorter but equally devastating. She spoke about Lily, about the 2 years she'd spent afraid to love anything because losing Lily had nearly destroyed her. About how Grace and her puppies had shown her that love multiplies rather than divides. When you give your heart to someone new, you're not giving away a piece of what you had before, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. You're creating something new, something that honors everyone who came before while embracing everyone who's here now. They kissed as husband and wife to thunderous applause and the sound of 7 puppies barking in celebration. The reception was chaotic and perfect. Puppies ran wild. Adults laughed and cried and shared stories. Grace held court in the center of it all, accepting pets and treats and adoration with the dignity of a queen who'd survived hell and come out the other side still believing in goodness. As the sun set and guests began to leave, Nathan found himself standing at the fence line looking out over the rescue center. Grace appeared beside him, as she always did, her presence a constant comfort. "You know what the best part is?" Nathan said to her, knowing she couldn't understand words but trusting she understood meaning. "The best part is that we saved each other." Grace looked up at him with those deep brown eyes that had seen so much pain and chosen hope anyway. "I pulled you out of the rubble," Nathan continued. "But you pulled me out of mine. We're even." But they weren't even, and he knew it. Grace had given him infinitely more than he'd given her. She'd given him purpose, community, a reason to wake up without dread, the courage to love again. She'd given him his life back. A year ago, Nathan had been alone, broken, waiting to die. Now he had a wife, a home, a mission, friends who'd become family, a rescue center that saved lives every single day, and he had Grace, the mother dog who'd survived the unsurvivable, who'd kept 7 babies alive through 3 weeks of hell through sheer force of will and love, who'd been beaten and starved and abandoned and still chose to trust again. Sarah appeared on his other side, slipping her arm around his waist. Chance trotted over with Grace Jr., both of them settling at Nathan's feet. Behind them, the rescue center hummed with life. Kennels full of animals on their way to better futures. Staff members who believed that every creature deserved dignity and care. A mission statement etched above the door. Every life deserves a second chance. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked. Nathan looked at Grace, at Chance, at the rescue center, at his new wife. Thought about Marcus and Ethan and Buddy and all the losses that had led to this moment. Thought about how pain could either destroy you or transform you, depending on what you chose to do with it. "I'm thinking," Nathan said, "that some bonds are forged in fire and pain, that some trust is earned through scars and survival, and that some love, the truest, deepest kind, refuses to break no matter how hard the world tries to shatter it. Grace wagged her tail. She taught me that, Nathan said. She was buried, beaten, abandoned, but she never stopped loving, never stopped hoping, never stopped fighting for the ones who depended on her. He knelt down, buried his face in Grace's fur, and whispered the truth that had taken him 3 years and one miraculous rescue to understand. The lives we save us right back. Grace licked his face. The sun set gold and red over California, and in that moment, everyone who'd been broken found themselves whole. The end. If you've ever felt buried under the weight of regret, loneliness, or the belief that your best days are behind you, Grace's story is for you. She survived 3 weeks in darkness, her body broken, her trust shattered by those who should have protected her. Yet when Nathan reached down to save her, she didn't bite the hand extended in mercy. She chose hope. That choice changed everything. Not just for 7 puppies fighting to breathe, but for a broken firefighter drowning in survivor's guilt, a widow eating dinner alone for the 5th year, and a teenage boy trying to outrun his past. They were all buried under their own rubble until one mother's refusal to give up showed them something profound. It's never too late to trust again, to love again, to matter again. Your scars don't disqualify you from joy. They prove you survived something that should have destroyed you. That makes you stronger than you know. The second half of your life can be the most meaningful if you're willing to dig yourself out and reach for the hand being offered. So here's my question for you. What rubble are you still buried under? And what would it take for you to believe you deserve rescue? Share your thoughts below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.